Are we lifting it? Like, I can pick it up. One of our long-term goals with our homestead is to grow most, if not all, of our own food. And part of that is being able to provide food for our own family during the winter season. So we were initially thinking we may wait until spring to get started growing things on our homestead. But then we decided we could grow mushrooms inside, so that's our plan for this winter.
Over the past few weeks, instead of researching on building topics, we've been researching mushroom growing and found out there is a huge online niche for this, and there's a million different ways that you can grow these. But we decided to use grain spawn. This is from North Spore. It's an online vendor that we found, and this is essentially a wheat or a grain of some sort they have that they inoculate with the fungus. It starts growing on this grain, and then we mix that with a substrate. In our case, will be coconut coir, and that will be the base for our mushrooms. Okay, step one. What are we doing here, Elaina?
The first thing that we're doing is we're gonna mix what's called grain spawn with a substrate, and then this is what's going to start the growing of our mushrooms. Just like everything that we do here on our homestead is we like to learn a little bit about a lot of things, and that's how we feel about growing mushrooms. But basically,
AKA, we don't really know what we're doing, but
we don't really know what we're doing, but we know enough to be successful. So, what we have decided to use for our substrate is coconut coir and a little bit of coffee grounds. Coconut coir is sold in these blocks, and you mix water with it and it expands. We've used this in gardening, so I know how this works. The coffee grounds actually came from Starbucks. So with this coconut coir, this is primarily a carbon. We need a little bit of nitrogen, so we're gonna be using some of these spent coffee grounds from Starbucks and mix it in to make our substrate.
Fun fact, they keep all of their coffee grounds out back, in our case just by the door in a bunch of bags, so we were able to go pick them up. She's too embarrassed because we're in the drive-thru. How many do you want?
And anything that we don't use for our substrate, we can put in our compost bin. So we're reducing waste one bag of coffee grounds at a time.
It was funny, when we went to go pick these coffee grounds up, Starbucks was absolutely bumping. The whole drive-thru was full of cars, and like we had to walk through the cars with people staring at us through their windshield, thinking, what the heck are these people doing? And then we just grabbed this bag of coffee grounds and run away.
I was too embarrassed. I made Alex do it. But I guess I should be confident in my decision to reduce waste, but it was a little bit embarrassing.
It was funny. You had to be there.
Coconut coir is a byproduct of processing coconuts. I believe it's like the husk of the coconut kind of shredded down, and it's used commonly in gardening, and apparently you can also use it to grow mushrooms. It's gotten really cold outside, so we don't have our water hooked up out here. We could hook it up, but we're actually gonna use the water inside, and I'm gonna show you our makeshift bathroom that we have set up. I don't think we've ever shown this on YouTube before, but ta-da! We now have a door on our bathroom. Makeshift door. And we also have a light. Very sophisticated. Check this out.
Wow. It's completely dark in here.
It is very dark, but we do have a source of light. So I'm just gonna fill up some water in our canning pot, and we'll take this outside. I'm just gonna fill up a little bit, just enough to expand that coconut coir.
So what's going on here? Is that warm water? You just put that in?
Yeah, I put it in warm water, and it should expand. I might need more of a bucket.
Do you have to break it apart?
It will kind of just like expand.
I think you got to submerge it.
Oh.
Whoa.
Whoa. That was a very dramatic whoa. So it's already soaked up a lot of this water. Broke it down into smaller pieces.
Looks pretty gross, not gonna lie.
Why does it look gross? It looks like dirt. What does it look like?
I don't know, vomit?
What? It's brown!
Cat vomit?
It looks like...
It's like a hairball.
Organic dirt.
It's like a bunch of hairballs. We're on to brick number 2, tray number 2, and it's still looking kind of gross.
You can see one brick fills an entire 10-20 tray. So it used to be this tiny little thing, and now we have a whole tray full.
Our mushroom research has told us that we should have about 20% grain spawn to 80% cocoa core. So we have a 6-pound bag of grain spawn. We're gonna split that between 2 trays, so 3 pounds each, which should tell us we need somewhere like, I don't know, 8 or 9 more pounds of cocoa core, which with the water added, it gets there pretty quick. Plus, we can't forget about 1/4 of the mixture will be coffee grounds, so that will make up for some of the weight too. Does it smell like Starbucks?
It smells like coffee. It smells pretty good.
They had tons of these bags. Every Starbucks must generate just pounds upon pounds of coffee grounds every day that just end up in the landfill. So I'm glad that we can end up using some of these for a regrowth purpose.
I think this is a coffee filter.
Yep, big old coffee filter.
It's pretty coarse grounds. I'm surprised. I would have thought that they used finer grinds.
They don't have the time to grind it up that fine.
You can buy it ground up that fine.
They just slap it in the machine and go. I dare you to eat some.
Ew. I dare you to eat some.
It's okay. I don't drink coffee as is.
We'll mix it all up. The next step is to pasteurize it all. So once we pasteurize it, if we realize we have too much, we can just compost that, and then we'll just use whatever we can for the mushrooms. I think that's good, like about 1/4. That looks about 1/4, right?
Sure.
Okay. Good enough. That's gonna go in the pot. We might have to do 2 separate pots. We'll see. Black gold. It smells really good.
Dump her in.
Now this is gross looking.
This looks like a mudslide. This is gonna be a very full pot.
This is gonna be interesting. We'll see if this works.
Let no cocoa go to waste. We have to clean and sterilize these trays next, so really anything that's left in here is gonna get wasted if we don't pull it out now. Ooh, that's nice. A little campfire. All right, do we need like a wooden spoon or something to...
Stick, maybe?
A stick?
We originally bought this propane burner to use for processing chickens. Our first year raising laying hens, we ended up with 3 or 4 roosters. I don't remember exactly how many. And we decided to process them. Before we ever even got chickens though, we went to a local farm and learned how to process chickens. We felt like it was a really important thing for us to learn that skill so that we could make an educated decision on what we wanted to do with our roosters. So this propane burner has come in handy, and we actually have used it for canning as well. So part of our canning setup is going to be using these Aqua hose bibs that we have back here. We have a hot and a cold. We're gonna hook that up. We're gonna set up an outdoor canning setup, and then we're gonna do all of our canning outside eventually. I feel like kids would love this.
I feel like I'm cooking in the mud kitchen right now. Just stirring a pot of dirt. Dirt and water.
Yummy.
We have our handy meat thermometer that we're gonna go ahead and stick in the pot, leave it in there. And I have it set to beep at 160. We want to keep this somewhere around 150 for 2 hours from what we've read. This will pasteurize the mix and make sure there's no bacteria living in there that are going to disturb the mushrooms when they're trying to grow. Once we get that dialed in, I'll crank the propane back so that it stays right around 150. We didn't even come close to using all those coffee grounds, so the rest of it we will add to our makeshift compost pile here at the homestead. There is absolutely nothing special about this compost pile. No fancy compost bin, no time for that yet. Instead, just a pile of food scraps, sticks, leaves, and now some coffee grounds.
I think I'm gonna take this filter out though, because I don't know what it was made of.
Yeah, we'll toss the coffee filter. We're right around that 150 mark. Now to let this guy sit for about 2 hours. Fast forward 2 hours and we made a little windscreen because the thing kept blowing out. And we also found that we could not really keep it at 150. It wanted to go hotter. So it ended up being around 190 the whole time. And now this is what we have, a dirt pie. Now the goal is to let this thing cool down to room temperature, roughly, I think.
We definitely have to drain out some of the liquid too.
Drain the liquid out. Oh, right, wrung out sponge. We're looking for a wrung out sponge consistency on the coconut core.
Yeah, so we might want to let it cool a little bit before we drain it.
Should we bring it inside to cool down, or should we just leave it out
Yeah,
here?
I think we should bring it inside to cool.
We'll definitely don't cool down quicker out here, but You want to strain it?
Let's try to strain it here.
Okay.
I don't want to like strain it. I'm just going to try to like...
Just tip it right off the side there and see if you can get water out the...
On top of this?
Yeah.
I'm going to put it on the ground at least.
Yeah, that seems to be working. Similar to how I strain like spaghetti.
It smells like coffee.
Did we literally just brew coffee?
Should we drink it? Go get a cup.
It smells exactly like coffee. Interesting. Pouring all that fresh coffee on the ground. It just keeps going. There's tons of water coming out of this. It's been about 24 hours since we heated up our mushroom substrate mix, and we are in the utility room. We've got a little temporary setup here. What's going on?
This is our mushroom prep area. So we just have a folding table that we put some paper on. One of the key things whenever you're growing mushrooms is making sure everything's really clean. So we have our isopropyl alcohol that we're gonna rub everything down with first, and then we're gonna wash our hands and then touch the substrate, get it into our trays, and mix in our spawn.
This part should go pretty quick, and I think the most important thing is to make sure everything is nice and clean. If it's not, then we might get mold or something growing, which we don't want.
So you have a rag, I got a rag.
I need to wash my hands.
Okay. We initially thought we were going to actually do this portion of the process outdoors, but then we realized that there's probably spores and other things outdoors that we don't want contaminating our mushrooms. So we decided to do it indoors, and since it is dark outside now at 5 p.m., we have to do this in the utility room because we really don't have lights many places in the house other than the utility room and then a small portion of the garage. Let's clean these trays first, since we really just need the inside of the tray clean. Oh, that might be a good idea. Can you do a little bit of that for me? Okay, that's good. I don't think it needs excessive. Oh, so clean smelling.
Great alcohol.
We need some ventilation in here. Woo!
You ready for a shot when we're done? Shot of rubbing alcohol.
Oh, no. That's not even something to joke about. Now the substrate's not going to be touching the bottom of these trays because we have a mesh that we're sitting inside of these trays. Realistically, we probably don't need to be cleaning this extremely well, but you never know. This is our first time doing it, so we're going to try to be extra cautious.
Trays are clean. We, I think, are ready to pull the trigger on mixing, right?
Yep, yes. So
Alrighty.
as I mentioned, we have a mesh tray that is going to be going inside our 1020 trays. These trays are all from Bootstrap Farmer, which a special thanks to them for supporting this project and sponsoring this video. We have been using Bootstrap Farmer stuff for several years now for our seed starting, and this is obviously our first time growing mushrooms. So it's going to be our first time trying out these mesh trays, but we've been using 1020 trays for a while, and they're super, super durable, not like the stuff that you find at big box stores, which we can appreciate as growers.
These will last a lifetime. They're really like thick and they don't bend easily. They're really rigid, so it's really easy to actually carry around full trays of seedlings and whatever else, mushrooms in this case, without it breaking like they usually do.
So everything that you see in this video that we're using for our mushroom project is going to be available on Bootstrap Farmer's website in a bundle format. So you can just buy all the equipment that you need to get started growing mushrooms just by buying the bundle, which is really awesome.
Yep,
and that's another thing that they're working on, is adding a lot of bundles to their website, so it makes it easy for people who are just getting started with seed starting or just starting growing other things too. So let's get started. We mixed our substrate as best as we could while it was boiling. Alex used a stick.
It smells like dirt and coffee mixed together, surprisingly.
Yeah, so
Not surprisingly.
I'm just thinking, we shouldn't like split this evenly between the two trays because we knew that we had we're probably gonna have some extra of this.
I would think you want 80%, 20% that, 80% that. So we should put that in so we know what 20 looks like, and then add 4 times that pile in each tray.
This is what happens when you have 2 engineers doing a project.
Gotta be thinking.
We are very precise sometimes when we want to be. While Alex is opening the mushroom bag, I'll talk about the type of mushrooms we got. So these are oyster mushrooms. Ew, why are you smelling that?
It said if you smell something bad, then they're bad.
Oh, okay.
So it said you should smell it.
Did you smell something
No,
bad?
it smells good. Actually smells good. Smell it. It's kind of weird.
Oh my gosh, it's like the mycelium's already growing.
It smells sweet.
I'm creeped out a little bit.
Okay. It does look really strange.
The mushrooms that we're growing are oyster mushrooms. These are apparently pretty forgiving for anyone who's just getting started growing mushrooms. So you can grow oyster mushrooms several different ways. I believe you can also buy plugs to put in logs and grow them on logs as well. We're obviously growing them in trays. So let's split this and try it out.
We've let this sit in the fridge for like a month, which is what they recommend as the maximum length of time before putting it in a substrate. And you can see the mycelium is already starting to totally take over this bag. So we definitely got to get it going. So I guess we're just like tearing into this with our hands.
It looks pretty gross.
That is just like, it looks like a brick of mold, to be honest, but are we supposed to like cut it with a knife?
I think it would have looked less gross if the mycelium hadn't started growing.
Right, we definitely waited till the very last
moment
to do this.
Okay, well, we could just try to like chop it here so we don't have to touch the mycelium. Well, we're gonna have to touch it eventually. Okay, don't let it drop on the ground. Don't let it touch the table either.
Yeah, it's not on the table, it's
Okay.
on the plastic. Oh, jeez.
Oh, you're breaking it that way.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be
I'm
exact.
just gonna break the whole brick, yep.
Ooh.
Wow.
Is it cold?
No. Yeah, it just feels like all the grain, you don't feel any of the, like even that doesn't,
Oh, that's weird.
it's like rubbery.
It's
Yep.
like solid. It's like cheese.
Yeah, it kind of feels like cheese, yeah.
Okay, it's not as gross now that we've touched it. You'll survive. Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do with mine is like kind of break it apart. Massage it out.
You've coined this one, yours, over here. Okay, this is gonna be mine. We're gonna compete and see who grows the most mushrooms.
Ooh. Okay.
We're gonna have a challenge.
But we didn't
Whose grain spawn is better?
keep track of who was the cleanest when they were cleaning.
That doesn't matter. It's all about the output.
Well,
Uh-oh.
Oh,
I lost some spawn.
you're already down.
I'm down spawn. It went overboard.
This actually is a lot of volume. I'm just not expecting this much. We
Yeah.
could be doing this completely wrong. We're just gonna go with it. I thought you were gonna initially say we're gonna race to see who can mix this up the fastest.
Well, we could do that too. Be like a food fight. Can we practice for the wedding where I feed you the cake?
Straight fungus.
Straight fungus and grain. Yikes.
So the guidance is to do 20% of spawn to 80%, at least.
Right.
No,
It
at
said
least 20% of spawn.
it can be richer. It can have more spawn if
Yeah.
we need to. So
Oh, this feels
yeah,
nice.
I'm just gonna fill up the tray, basically, and then try to.
You gotta mix it
And then try to
in.
fold it.
This would be a really fun project with kids. It could get messy.
That's
but-
why they do this in science classes.
Which, speaking of, Bootstrap Farmer has an article on their website that gives you guidance on how to do a project similar to this with kids, which could be super fun.
If you happen to be a teacher and a science teacher watching this,
or
you might
just
want to give this a shot.
or a homeschool teacher.
Yeah, or if you homeschool, this would be the perfect little experiment.
And then they also have some instructions on like how to look at the spores and stuff like that. This is like the perfect moisture level.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I'm surprised.
It's
I
wetter
thought
at the bottom. See how wet it is at the bottom?
Oh, okay.
All the water kind of settled to the bottom.
Probably.
With everything mixed up, all we have to do is put a dome on and let the mycelium colonize the whole substrate. It's gonna basically turn white, and this can take up to 2 weeks, so it's just gonna be sitting in here for a while. The black dome keeps it nice and dark inside, even if we have the lights on in here, and now it's just a waiting game. Here's the before shot of Alex's, before shot of Elena's. These domes have humidity vents at the top. For this stage, we will leave them closed. We have quite a bit of extra substrate even after filling the 2 trays. I think we could have gotten away with just 1 cocoa block. Just a note for future reference. The moment has arrived. How long have we been waiting for this moment?
It has been 9 days, and we have peeked at our mushrooms, well, I guess our mycelium, every so often, and it seems to be growing really well. So now we are going to get ready for the fruiting stage. I just wanted to show you the area that we put this in for this first stage because it is very dark and there's not a ton of light. The light will encourage it to fruit, so we are trying to keep it as dark as possible. These domes definitely help with that, and let's check out and see what we have. What if that all fell on the ground?
So I think this is mine that's closer to me, and that's
Yep.
yours closer to you. Let's see who grew the most mycelium. Are we ready?
Okay.
This is gonna smell, I think, when we take them off, so we probably should.
Smell. Let's see.
It's gonna smell like
Who's
fungus.
better? 3, 2, 1. Oh my
Whoa,
gosh, that's
that is white.
crazy. There's a lot of moisture in there.
Holy smokes.
It looks kind of gross, but it also looks like a cloud.
Looks like a cloud. Here's mine. And here's Miss Elaina's. Vote in the comments who did it better. Only thing left to do is replace these black domes with the clear ones. We're gonna clean them out with some isopropyl alcohol.
And then we also need to invite some fresh air onto the trays. That's how we're gonna get the mycelium to start fruiting. It's really important to get some of that carbon dioxide out of there and get some fresh air. So we'll probably just use these containers to kind of fan over top, and we're supposed to do that twice a day.
Yep, so we'll have a timer set on our phone to come out and do that so we make sure we get some mushrooms growing.
I am not pouring mine in the container this time. That was really rough. Let's do this.
It smells like college shots.
No,
Cheap
it smells
vodka.
like the doctor's office.
It smells like cheap vodka. Did you ever have a shot of Vladimir?
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Made in Baltimore.
Is it really?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Distilled in Baltimore. It's local. It's a craft local spirit. Only the finest. Mine is good enough for government work. Let's do a little fan. Oh, this thing is full of humidity. Oh yeah, we need to spray these with water too, don't we?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It smells like fruity and fresh. Like it doesn't smell bad at all.
Doesn't smell bad at all, but I noticed that, like, see, there's a little bit of yellow there, and I saw it on yours too.
Okay, here you go. I already fanned it. It's fanned. It's plenty fanned.
Do you think that's enough? It's probably going to generate some too, because there's still so much moisture in this thing.
Now we just have to wait for the pinning to start, and we do need to make sure it has light, so we're going to move it a little bit closer to one of the garage doors, which has some windows in the top, which will give it a little bit of light, and we'll come back twice today to fan these things out and see if we can get some mushrooms growing.
And we'll show you some of the progress too. It's been about 9 days since we changed out our lid. You can see we have some major growth in here, and we're pretty sure that those are pins starting to form. You can see some of the really tiny mushrooms. It's hard to tell whenever we don't have experience in this, and this is our first time. Our mushrooms have been growing for several days now, and they seem to be doing extremely well. We do have one problem though, and that is that we are headed to Pittsburgh for the holidays. So we are going to be gone for a total of about 4 days. So we have to take these mushrooms with us. My plan for transporting these is I am going to tape the humidity dome onto the base tray, and then I'm also probably going to close the top vents. I think I'm going to keep one slightly open so that they can still breathe, but my biggest concern is something getting contaminated in this transition. This obviously isn't ideal, but we want to bring these mushrooms with us in the case that we need to harvest them while we are gone. We will be bringing both of these trays in addition to a dehydrator. The plan is to dehydrate some of the mushrooms and then use some of them fresh. I'm secretly hoping that they might be ready by Christmas, and then we could make some mushroom soup or something for Christmas. But if not, that's okay. It's going to be kind of fun to be able to show the mushrooms to our family whenever they come over to visit. Here's a closer look at what the mushrooms look like. You can see they've grown quite a bit larger. We have some pretty big clusters. Some of them are kind of growing into the humidity dome, which isn't ideal, but I think it's going to be okay. But you can see there are a lot of mushrooms, some of them larger than others. They're all taped up. This actually worked out really well because there's an inner ledge on the bottom tray as well. So I was able to just wrap the tape around and it sticks really well. I'm going to take the tape with me so that on the way back we can tape them if we need to. Also, once we harvest this first round of mushrooms, we'll do a second flush, which means we're going to be bringing this back regardless. The one thing that is going to be interesting about this whole process is that we have had these mushrooms at a temperature of about 50 to 55 degrees because they've been in this garage. When we take them to Pittsburgh with us, the temperatures are probably going to be a little bit warmer because we'll be in a heated house. We'll probably still put these in the garage there, but regardless, I think the temperatures are going to be a little bit higher. It'll be interesting to see if the mushrooms start growing faster with the warmer temperatures. We're going to be taking my Cross Trek with us, and we have 3 people coming in the car in addition to a dog. So it's going to be pretty tight, and we're going to add these mushrooms. I'm actually going to be putting these on top of Georgie's crate because they fit perfectly right up here.
Yesterday we made it safely to Pittsburgh. It's Elaina's hometown, and we are at her parents' house currently. We put the mushrooms in the garage, and we think we may have made a small mistake in even bringing them here.
After about 24 hours, we checked on the mushrooms and noticed that some of them have turned brown. We think that the mushrooms got extremely stressed in the whole process of taking them here, and since their environment changed, they just got extremely stressed out and maybe started drying out as well. So it doesn't look like there's any fungus or contamination in the actual bins, but it's more of a stress factor is what we're believing.
There may or may not have been a situation where the mushroom fell off the seat and tipped on its side. So that could have something to do with it.
Yeah, so unfortunately, this didn't go as planned, but we've learned a lot in this process. We've learned that mushrooms are pretty finicky and you should probably keep them in the environment that you start them in rather than changing that over time.
Once we finish our holiday time here, we'll head back, we'll bring the mushrooms back and see if we can nurse them back to health. There's at least a few in there that are still looking fine. They have not been stressed to the point of turning brown and stopping growth. So we'll see how it turns out once we get back and get them stabilized.
But regardless, we are going to plan to do a second round. We've already ordered some new grain spawn and we're going to try the whole process again. And this time we're not going to take them out of their environment while they're growing.
We're learning from our mistakes.
Which is part of homesteading and part of the lifestyle. So it's great.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. We learned what not to do, and next time we'll do better.
We've been back from our travels for about a week and a half now, and the mushrooms have seemed to actually make a bit of a rebound. They're now growing out the sides of the containers, which is a good sign. However, we did learn that we made 2 critical errors when we were preparing these and in our journey.
Yeah, so the first mistake we made was mixing way too much spawn with the amount of substrate we had.
Our mushroom research has told us that we should have about 20% grain spawn to 80% cocoa core.
If you were watching this from the beginning and you knew anything about mushrooms, you probably knew that right away, but we did not know that at the time that we mixed everything together.
Although to be fair, we got some resource on the internet is what told us the 20-80 ratio is which is what we did. However, the literature that comes with the spores said otherwise. We did not read that.
Yeah, so online, the recommendation was the 6 pounds of spawn to 120 pounds of substrate. And we did not have 120 pounds of substrate. And so clearly we mixed way too much spawn with what we had. And essentially there just was not enough food for all of the mushrooms, and there wasn't enough room for all of the mushrooms. It was definitely stressing out those young pinning mushrooms at an early stage. We saw some signs of it early on. There was a little bit of yellow liquid on the surface of the mycelium, and when we did some research about it, we learned that that's considered to be like mushroom pee, which is essentially what they produce as a byproduct of being stressed. We initially thought that that was because of the condensation forming on the container and the water dropping on the surface of the mycelium. Ideally, you don't want to have like stagnant water sitting on the mycelium, and that can cause them to get stressed out. So that's what we thought was stressing them out. But when we took them on our travels with us for the holiday and they started turning brown, that's what made us really start thinking about, wait, what is going on? And that also was the second mistake that we made, which was changing the climate and the environment that they were growing in. So basically we took them out of like a 50-degree climate and put them into a 70-degree climate within a period of one day. And the mushrooms just got really confused. And the reason why we believe that they turned brown is because they were drying out. So what's interesting is when we brought them back here, brought them back into this cold climate, they started regrowing. It's been like this very weird, interesting learning experience. But ultimately, we have way too many mushrooms in this tiny space. So what we're gonna do is experiment a little bit further.
Before we explain the next experiment with these things, let's show you what the current state looks like.
First, I want to show you how we have mushrooms growing out of the side. These probably are past the point in which you wanted to actually harvest them. We have just been letting things go because we're kind of experimenting. If I open up the lid, you can see that we have a lot more pinning that has appeared. The ones that browned over the holiday stayed brown. But the other weird thing is that we've started to have some like white fuzzy growing on stuff. So we're not sure if that is mold or if that's mycelium now trying to eat the mushrooms. We're not exactly sure. So
this is probably the worst of it right here.
Yeah, you can see this white fuzzy. We could just abandon this mycelium and the mushrooms that we have growing and throw them in the compost, but instead we are going to take this one step further and we are going to shave off any of the mushrooms and pinning, and then we're going to take the mycelium and spawn that's already formed and we're going to put them in between logs to do what's called totem mushroom growing. I guess that's what it's called. But basically we're going to make a totem with multiple logs, the spawn in between, and then the mushrooms will grow out the side. This is something we'll be doing outside, not inside, and it's just a way for us to continue this experiment and see what works. Ironically, the day that we're giving you this update, we also received more spawn in the mail. I ordered more spawn because I want to take this first time as a learning experience and apply what we've learned and successfully grow mushrooms hopefully this next time. We will be mixing a lot less spawn to substrate, and I think what I'm going to do is run multiple experiments with different levels of spawn and see which does the best, because I think that's kind of fun, and it's part of the fun with growing is experimenting and trying different things.
It was pretty tedious, but Elaina spent some time shaving off the mushrooms and pins from the substrate. These went right into the compost pile to be recycled in our future garden here. Despite an unsuccessful first attempt, we learned a lot through this process and had fun doing it. We'll save the totem growing experiment for a future video. As always, thanks for watching and we'll see you on the next one.